All right, what's going on, YouTube? Back at you with another video. I'm not gonna lie, did not feel like recording today, but it doesn't matter how I feel. I still gotta show up. We still gotta record. Make sure you guys are entertained. So, I wanted to talk about today. We're gonna talk about my favorite topics, of course, nutrition. See, with nutrition, for it to really sit in your mind, or you just get to a point where you could actually be consistent with your diet, you have to go through a few identity shifts. So we're gonna talk about today. How do you do that? You know, ultimately, the first step you just have to decide. You know what? You gotta look in the mirror and just be like, okay, I don't like how I look, and that's because of the foods you're eating. But then another thing too, see what this journey is gonna teach you is that delayed gratification is so important. Now, unfortunately, as a society, we've f- eating for pleasure or taste has become so normalized that when you don't do that, you're weird. You know, it's funny. People will call the meals I eat dog foods because it's always like ground beef or eggs. So, but the people saying that eat for taste so much that their waist is 40 plus inches. You know, it's just really crazy how that works. But remember, in the back of your mind, there's a part of you that knows I got to be eating better. I need to be doing better. But as soon as things get a little difficult, you're going to stop. That's why you have to keep going. Because today I'm tired. Gotta wake up early for the gym tomorrow, but I'm still gonna prioritize my sleep. But I still gotta record, so here I am. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter how you feel, you still have to show up. And this might trigger some people, but especially if you're a dude, you can't act like a bitch. You cannot be feminine when it comes to discipline stuff. Because regardless how you feel, you still have to show up. You still gotta hit the workout. You still gotta hit your protein goal. You still gotta eat the proper meals. And you avoid the cooking and all these things. You still have to do those things every day, regardless of how you feel. That's where the power comes from. Because eventually, remember, you won't have to rely so much on the discipline muscle. See, today. I think we must be 30 plus days up going consistently. I don't know. I didn't really track it, but this is the first time I had to use the discipline muscle. But because it's not used very often with this, like I can use it one time, boom, it's fine. Keep the streak alive, you know. And here we are. But you don't want to use that discipline muscle all the time. See, if there's a lot of goofy foods at home, you got to throw those out. Literally, I don't care. Don't do the whole I'm gonna start on Monday. Take those bag of Doritos, the Oreos, Chips Ahoy, throw all that shit out. I know you paid for it, it's some money wasted, but trust me, I'd rather you spend that time than spend it on diabetes medication. That's gonna cost you a lot more. So that's the first step. You gotta throw those things out. You have to change your environment, and after that, you have to learn the foods that you have to eat. For anyone that's watching this, we're gonna give you a quick crash course on the foods that you should eat. Now, don't go too much down the rabbit hole because a carnivore, keto, this, that. Ultimately, you will need a whole foods diet. All right, a whole foods diet. Should have one ingredient, two, maybe three, but ideally one ingredient foods. That's all you should eat. You know, do your vegetables, your fruits. I don't eat vegetables. We'll talk about that another day. But if you do want to do vegetables, that's fine. That's a lot better than the Oreos and the Chips Ahoy cookies and God knows what some of you eat. But that stuff's still poison. So yeah, if you're just eating whole single ingredient foods, and then even more importantly, you got to eat your protein. I'm sorry if you're vegan and watching this. You know, yeah, if you can do plant proteins, but we're not gonna get into that. For the average person that just wants to be the healthiest version possible, you got to eat your protein. The ground beef, I promise, is not going to kill you the way that doctors and that should demonize it. It's not. Ground beef is not going to be the reason. It's funny enough, it's going to be the crumble cookie and all that stuff. That stuff's actual poison. So eat your protein, your chicken, do ground beef, spam ground beef. You know, I eat it every day. You're going to be fine, I promise. But make sure you're hitting your protein goal for your carbs. You know, fruits, whatever. You can't really. That's the thing. When you eat properly, it's really hard to overeat. You still can. Don't get me wrong, but you know, have your fruits, get your protein goal. Because that's the thing. It's also because you start eating all the right foods, but it's really what you're avoiding. You start to recognize later in the journey. Is why you feel so much better, you move so much better than other people, you know? You know, today I'm at work, I look to my left, my coworker's like munching on Haribo gummies and then plantain chips. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe I'm around these people. But it's fine. You just have to. I would never eat it, but it's just that's what the average person eats. So you can't even fault them because that's how everyone eats. So when you don't do those things, you're the weird one. That's another thing too. See, on this journey, you have to recognize that you're the weird one. You're gonna find peace in that, you know, because if you think if you don't have that mindset, then you're just gonna hate yourself. You're gonna think, oh, why is everyone thinking? Once you recognize you're the weird one, then you're like, oh, everything they're saying is normal. Oh, you're obsessed. You think you're better, or you can't have fun a little bit. They don't get it because they don't do it. That's something David Goggins talks about too. Like they don't get it. You have to really, because the average person, why would you willingly put yourself through discomfort over and over and over and over and over fucking again? It doesn't make any sense. It's not something they're going to get because they just want to have fun. They want it for the moment, you know? Those people, they'll never understand why we do all this. But the ones of us that are locked in, you know, it's some anime shit. You're trying to get to that next level. Keep going. See how far you can push this. What's on the other side? What happens if I actually lock in for the 6 months? What'll change? That curiosity, but just the desire to be better, become the best version of yourself. That's why a lot of us keep going. And eventually you'll get to that point too, but you have to give the journey a lot of time. The nutrition aspect of this, you have to give a lot of time too, because it is arguably, you could make the argument that conquering gluttony, it could be more difficult than lust because you have to eat every day. You have to eat every day. You could do these to fast and stuff, but you're gonna have to eat basically every day. So every day you go to war with gluttony every day. That's why that's the thing too. Once for me it just made sense. Once I conquered my relationship with food, it just made sense to get lean. Like I already know I'm lean because lean is just a consequence of your relationship with food, literally. And for me, it's the journey is so things just happen at the right time. Like your standards get higher, and okay, naturally, boom, you understand. Okay, I need to cut now because you have the awareness, the vibration to actually do it, and it's gonna be easy. But with food, anyone that can control what they eat, there's nothing else they can't do. But you guys just don't get it because it seems so basic, but no one does it. That's the thing. No one does it. Man, plenty of people work out. You know, I was consistent in the gym, but there's always going to be that cheat meal one day out of the week. And I'm telling you, I think the final, let me tell you, the final identity shift needed is when you recognize that seventh day where I go out with friends and eat goofy shit. If I eliminate that, I'm gonna be golden. Once you're okay without that seventh day cheat meal, everything changes. Everything changes. That's another thing too. You know, if you have a lot of debt or you're just struggling, when you decide to get lean and you reduce the calories, you're gonna be saving a lot more money on food. That's gonna help. You know, you can allocate that and the other things. But the grocery bill, the reason that's another thing too. And I always kind of talk to my peeps about it, but all the juice and stuff they buy, I'm like, if you guys didn't buy that, but I know they're not gonna eat the way I do. But if they hypothetically did, see, a woman could probably get away with like 40, I think, to $50. They eat the same foods I do, but they just need way less because they're a woman, obviously, not as much muscle mass. But it's so cheap to eat this way. That alone makes it worth it. That's why I won't bulk again because ultimately, this is a lifestyle. There's no reason to speed up muscle gain when it's a very long process. You know, you need like 12 to 15 years of consistent living to really like reach your peak. So when you're only like 5 or 6 years, why bulk? You know, it's cheaper just to maintain, but these are just things you kind of think about as you develop deeper along the path. But you have to give the diet your all. Your standards have to get so high where this stuff becomes effortless. Because for me, I'm not going to crumble. I'm not going to eat those goofy foods. That's why the people I used to do that with, I don't interact with anymore because you can't. You know, you outgrow them. And you could say the same thing. Maybe You outgrew them, they outgrew you because you're going in different directions. But that's why I always say there's not a lot of people really about this. You're probably listening. You're probably not about this path yet, but you'll get there. But you're probably still LARPing, and that's okay. In the beginning, you have to fake it till you make it. But you're also gonna recognize that a lot of people don't last because it's difficult. It really feels like the beginning for me. It's only been 5 years. So you have to be consistent, intentional, diligent for 5 years. 95% of the way there, and that's really preparation for the last 5%. And some people that journey takes even longer. So you have to just give it a lot of time. But you have to start by just doing and showing up and deciding to be better. You know, that's the thing too. Everyone, you're gonna have different tools to work with. You might naturally, if you're someone that likes to eat eggs, okay, great. You see, that's okay. You already like to eat one of the best foods on the planet. Just eat more of those. Or maybe you love ground beef. Maybe you love steak. Those are really good foods. So if you're starting the journey and you like those foods, double down. Use that as your advantage because certain people they might hate those foods. Now they have to in the beginning force themselves to eat them, but you already like those foods. Use that as your advantage. That's another thing this journey is going to teach you. You have to take advantage of your advantages. See, for me, it was always diet, but then you recognize, the diet's the most important part. So this is actually the best advantage to have. I could eat the same meals every day because for years now I've had the awareness. Okay, you got to primarily eat to fill your body, not for taste. So very rarely I would go out and eat. But you see, for me, I recognize now that even though it seems very inconsequential, that one cheat meal, it holds you back a lot because when you treat every day as Monday, every day you honor your commitments to yourself instead of 6 days out of the week. The difference of that one day is paramount. It's very drastic. That's why all the chains I think are coming to me now because okay, yeah, we're okay. Giving up that last cheat day, so now 7 days out the week, every day is Monday, same meals, rinse and repeat. Once you get to that point, the identity shift is so strong, you hardly have to use your discipline muscle because I just eat these foods. You refuse to eat poison. And that sounds crazy. It's just because, you're not there yet. There's a part of you that still wants to justify eating for taste. And that's okay. But then if you're listening to this, you're probably also saying, oh, I want to be muscular. Oh, I want to be really lean. I want to look like, anime character. You can't have both. You can't constantly eat for taste and then get that physique. That's why you have to be okay with the cost because you're gonna pay somehow. See, for me, it's I'm okay paying the cost now. This is what it takes. It becomes your identity, and you're fine with it. But just you have to pay something, and you have to make sure you're okay with those consequences. Because if you go online, everyone talks about how important the diet is, but it's also the mindset needed too. Because that's why people yo-yo diet. They go back and forth because you refuse to fight the spiritual battle with food in your mind. You have to address that someday. But before you do, you have to recognize, like, okay, man, maybe I do have a problem. Now, usually that's going to reflect externally. Because remember, if you're overweight, and this is why awareness is important. And it's crazy. As someone that was objectively healthy, anyone that knows me, okay, he takes his health serious. I just didn't realize how cooked the average person was. How you could be skinny and still be like 25%, 20%. It just blew my mind because I just recently had the awareness. But the awareness came when I really just understood fundamentally like my relationship with food. Because it really clicked like, wow, like people they really don't care and they really don't try. That is the norm. Eating a bunch of donuts in the morning, hella carbs, no protein, that's normal. That's the thing too. Like I'll try to talk to coworkers and stuff, but they just don't get it. And I was having a conversation and I was basically arguing. No one that eats very well, like they take the diet seriously, is gonna struggle with intensity in the gym. I'm sorry. Because anyone that if you've been doing this journey long enough, diet is where the winners and losers are born. It's not in the gym. I refuse to believe there's someone that can eat the same foods on repeat and have a cheat meal for months and they can't train hard in the gym. I know that doesn't exist. Or maybe it does. I don't know. But it just I'm like, nah, there's no way. The diet is the 80/20. The diet is the very hard part because it's easy to go to the gym 5 days a week, but then to eat the same meals every day for 7 days out of the week, that's significantly harder. That is significantly harder for going to be harder for most people. But that's the most important step because if you're listening, you're probably doing all the right things except for the nutrition part. So once that's locked in, everything's gonna change. Everything else can stay the same, and you're just going to explode because that was the last key. That was the last chain. You took the Rock Lee weights off, and now you could just move. That's how it was for me, and that was funny because I always thought the diet was my specialty. Only now I can say it's the thing I excel in. Because if you take 5 people, one of them's gonna take the diet seriously. Maybe out of like 100, yeah, maybe five are going to really take the diet seriously. Because a lot of people they'll do like protein bars and this stuff, which is fine, but a lot of them have so much cooked ingredients. But if you have a clean one, that's fine. But I'm always gonna opt for eggs, beef, whole foods. As you learn more, you're gonna recognize that yeah, like it's not just about the protein. There's a lot of things in meat that you really can't get anywhere else. Like not even whey protein has, like taurine, glycine, a bunch of other things. That's why you need to eat protein. That's why protein is the most important macronutrient. But yeah, with the diet, just start, learn more. If you have a locked in friend, talk to them. Or if you don't, then you just find someone. Find someone that knows what they're talking about. Eat the foods they do. Track your meals, and just learn the basics. But just be curious. I would say for me, you have to be curious. I was always curious about the diet. That led me into kind of down this whole rabbit hole and this whole self improvement, even into like understanding some like basic biochemistry, because all that stuff's important. Because you'll notice that's the thing too. When you start winning more in inner battles, it reflects externally as you learning more or being able to be more consistent. But you still also have to do. You still have to do and try for you to get these small little wins. Then they'll stack up, and you'll be able to be consistent and stay with the diet. Because what you don't want to do is, for 4 months, or that's why now personally, I don't believe in challenges anymore. I would say if you are doing a diet challenge, it has to be for 6 months. That is enough time to have enough identity shifts. Because if you do a challenge, you do a diet challenge for 6 months, whatever that challenge is, that's your identity now. There's no way you could half a year not miss one day and that doesn't become your identity. But you might deviate, you might jump off, the cliff as like a little bit. But I'd say 6 to 8 months. Now that's how I would gauge progress. Because I would say even 8 months, because the first month and two is going to be the identity shift needed, and then the 6 months after that is just staying consistent, and then it reflects externally at the end of 6 months. So I would say 6 to 8 months you have to give it. Because for me, I would say I started. It was last year March. That's when I learned about like the animal based diet. I got a mentor. He kind of showed me the foods that we should be eating. But it wasn't until recently, about 2 months ago, where I basically had because I was 95, 96% of the way there. It's not like I was overweight, but I'd go out and eat with friends, eat the goofy meals. Very, very rarely, but I would do it. So when I decided, yeah, I'm okay without that. It's always some anime shit. I always describe it as, JJK. It's like a heavy restriction. In exchange for not eating for pleasure anymore, you will get the mind, the body that no one else can have, or very few people can attain because you've given up something that everyone just overindulges in. As far as another heavy restriction, in exchange for giving into your lust, you get the glow, you get all the benefits, you get all that stuff because it's very hard to do. That's why you have to do hard, difficult things. And that's another thing too, because when you think about it, eating healthy shouldn't be difficult. That shouldn't even be a trophy. That you shouldn't even get a participation trophy for that. That is the bare minimum. But of course, everyone's standards are so low that when you do the bare minimum, you are considered exceptional. That's another way, when you haven't started done shifts, when you recognize, yeah, what I'm doing is not difficult. It's actually the bare minimum. That's gonna make you move and operate a certain way and make it very easy to maintain this new identity and make sure you're eating the right foods. Yeah, guys, stay locked in. Make sure you're hitting your protein goal. Remember, point 0.8 to 1 gram of protein. Maybe athletes do a little more, but you keep it simple. 0.7 to 1 gram. I would say go up more towards the gram if you're doing protein bars and that stuff. I'm always gonna recommend whole foods. Whole foods. You have to stop eating out. I know you love Cane's. I know you love Popeyes, or I don't know whatever you guys eat, but you're gonna be okay without it because what you can't have both. And it's something I had to learn from my old friend group. They just wanted it both ways. You gotta pick a side. But if you want to be the coldest, dangerous motherfucker, like we all want to be, gotta stay hard. We have to do the difficult things, but you gotta pick the side discomfort till it's not even discomfort anymore. Because that's where the growth is. Because anyone that masters gluttony, masters lust, they're gonna be very powerful. That's why you gotta keep moving forward on some area. Your shit always. You gotta keep moving forward. Because it's not gonna be easy. I didn't want to record today, but I'm glad that we got another video out. If it helps any of you guys, comment, like, subscribe, do all that. I don't know if anyone actually watched the end, but if you do, you're one. I appreciate it. I'm gonna keep doing these for you. Because if it gets one of you guys to eat healthier, that can really change your whole environment or even your family, because all it takes is one locked in person, Sometimes I think you just need to see or interact with one locked in person, and that's all you need to change. That's how it was for me. Even though I haven't physically met the person, I've talked to them. I'm in a community with a bunch of people like them. That's all I needed. That's why I'm like this now. That's why I record these videos. This is the consequence of being around locked people. But yeah, stay locked. Till next one. Let's get it.